Welcome back to the TruGolf Academy. You've joined me, Jon Watts, today at Branston Golf and Country Club. Today is part one of a three-part series on how to break 100. So I'm going to be sharing with you three really simple tips that are going to make sure you break that 100 score for the first time or start doing it more repeatedly. So part one, this is going to be about round the green, so chip and runs, making it as simple as possible. Stay tuned to find out more. As mentioned, this is part one of a three-part series on how to break 100. I'm also going to be doing 3 tips on how to break the 90 and how to break the 80 as well. For this one, I chose chip and runs, getting the ball on the ground sooner, so keeping it really simple round the green. When we are starting off, even when we're a bit more into golf, we're more likely to be missing greens than hitting greens. I think the tour average, is something like 12 out of 18 greens hit, maybe 11. So the best players in the world are still missing, a good 7, 8 greens in regulation. Now that might not be all the time, but they are missing greens. We are going to be missing even more. So we are faced with lots of shots round the green like this. And I just get a lot of people choosing the wrong option, choosing the wrong club. So I wanted to go on to what I feel is the simplest option from here. So we are having some really nice dry weathers. You can see it is a little bit burnt out and crispy on this high edge of the green here, but that doesn't matter to me. That doesn't affect me. What I've got to be flying over is this rough area. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yards, 15 feet to the edge of the green. That's going uphill, so I'm forgetting that part. I want to be landing the ball onto the green, so I'm trying to choose a spot closer to me. And I get a lot of people say, well, why would I bother doing that? Why wouldn't I just fly that ball that little bit further on? It's just the same reason if we were throwing the ball back and forth to someone. If we were going for a shorter throw, if we were standing closer to the person we were throwing at, we're going to be more accurate, because we'd set our pressure onto our lead leg, our front foot, and we wouldn't really use any wrists. When we're trying to fly the ball or throw the ball further, we're having to start to use wrists, weight transfer. There's more things involved, so it's much harder to be accurate when we're flying the ball further. I want this to be simple. I want to try and get the ball on the ground as soon as possible and then rolling. So for me, I get a lot of golfers when they're around the green, they tend to take a sand wedge or a pitching wedge or something like that, which means they're having to fly that ball that much further. They're making a longer swing. There's more things going on. They're more likely to be misstriking things. So I want you to be using some lower lofted clubs. Now it is going to be a little bit of practice, a little bit of perseverance around the green to find out what clubs you're going to be using from what situations. I have done a video on club selection before, and I would encourage you to actually find out, once you're a little bit more into this method and this technique, I'd encourage you to find out what your 50-50 club is. What is your club that if it flies 5 yards, it rolls 5 yards? It's going to be somewhere around that sand wedge, pitching wedge, gap wedge-ish area. For me, it then changes 10% per club. So as I'm going lower lofted, the ball is less in the air, more on the ground. So for this particular shot, I only want to fly the ball about 6 yards, so it's a yard onto the green, but then I want the ball to roll and release quite a lot. So I'm going to be using a lower lofted club here. I want this to be about my 20-80 club, which for me is my 8-iron. So I'm going to be using something a lot lower lofted rather than that sand wedge, pitching wedge. And the simple setup that I want to encourage you to do is set up more like a putter in terms of the grip and the shaft angle. So I want you to move the club more up in the air so you can get closer to the golf ball. The closer I get to it, the more this club is actually working more or closer to a pendulum, more up and down. It's got less rotation to it. So it makes it simpler. So I want to get the club more like an angle of a putter. I want you therefore to creep in a little bit closer, and the longer the club, the lower I'd go down the handle. So if you were gripping the club towards the top with a sand wedge or a pitching wedge, I'd go lower with the 9 and the 8s and the 7s. I would just start going lower down the handle. I would also encourage you to use whatever grip you use for a putter. I'd want you to use for this. Unless you go something particularly wacky, I want you to grip it more like a putter, which are thumbs more down the center and maybe linking the hands slightly differently than you would do with your irons or your woods. So I want you to use more of a putter grip. I want you to get that club more upright like a putter, and the longer the club, the lower you're going down the handle. Now, in terms of the action, I want to be as wrist-free as possible. So what I'm trying to do is start with the ball nearer my back foot, my trail foot, the one that is furthest away from the target, just to make sure that my center, my sternum, the buttons on my polo shirt are ahead of the golf ball. That means I feel most of my pressure, most of my weight onto my front foot, and I want to keep my hands nearing my front thigh. What you'll see that creates is more this letter Y between my arms and club shaft, and I just want to try and keep that letter Y on the way back and keep it on the way through. What I don't want to be using is my wrists at all. If you are a wristy player, the exercise I would encourage you to go ahead and do is grab another club or a stick, a tall stick, and just hold the two clubs together. So the one club is going to go under your lead arm. And it's a great one to feel like we take the wrists out of it. I cannot use my wrists, otherwise I see the other club or the cane, and if I use my wrists on the way through, I'm going to end up hitting myself. So what I want to try and do is set this letter Y between my arms and club shaft, and I'm trying to keep that on the way back and keep that on the way through. So it's a very stiff-wristed shot. I'm going to go ahead and hit this. I've chosen my 8-iron. I'm going to be landing the ball that yard on the green. We go for the green rather than anything else just because it's a consistent surface. So I've set that letter Y, and I'm going to keep the letter Y on the way back and on the way through. Now that landed a little bit short of my ideal spot, so it has come up short of the hole, but considering it wasn't my best hit, it's ended up okay. Whereas if I was using my sand wedge there and I hit, that bad a contact, I'd really know about it. This one's going to be better. So I'm going to go that yard on the green. I set that letter Y, and that was a better strike, landing that yard on the green. You can see on the way through there, I've kept that letter Y. Now that's ended up pin high, so level with the flag. It's a little bit wider than I wanted, so take your time on aim and alignment, but I kept that letter Y on the way back. I kept that letter Y on the way through. I really took my wrists out of it. So it was a very dead hand shot, more like a putting action. You wouldn't be putting using a lot of wrists. We want it to be more with the shoulders. So it's a really simple tip. If you can start to think about getting the ball on the ground sooner, I would choose a spot about a yard on the green. It's then a bit of practice to find out what club does what, but start using some lower lofted clubs rather than just these pitching wedges and sand wedges. Start thinking about getting the ball on the ground sooner and letting the ball roll and release. What I want you to practice is taking out the wrists. So we're setting that letter Y and we're keeping it on the way back. We're keeping it on the way through. The best exercise is just another club or a cane up the side of the golf club so it's under your lead arm, and that will really get you used to this dead hand shot that's going to make you score better. This is definitely the first tip to lowering your scores. When you're missing the green, choose a simple option. Get that ball nearer the hole. It's going to put a lot less pressure on your putting, and it's going to help you score lower than that 100, break that 100 mark. If this video has helped, please make sure you give us a thumbs up and do subscribe to the channel for all the other content every Tuesday and Thursday. The next video is coming up also on the Break 100 series, so make sure you check that one out also. Thanks guys, we'll see you soon.